What is a roast profile? A roast profile is a record of the roasters and the environment's measured influence on the green coffee. Simply put, this is a recipe showing the graph of temperature over time. As with any measurements, it is important to remember that errors exist, and it is crucial for us roasters to constantly be aware of as many sources of errors as possible. A good equipment reduces the amounts of unknown and potential errors. And a good roaster understands the sources of errors and makes logical inferences to decide their next steps. Let's get a bit more familiar with the common approaches to roast profiles. A roast profile is an annotated curve graph. The two axes are temperature and time, illustrating the change of temperature over time. And most roast profiles take this shape. And let's take a look as to why. It is important to note that the temperature is almost always measured with probe when roasting coffee. When taking a look at a most basic form of a roast profile, the curve shows the internal or the bean temperature, which is an average of surface temperature and the air temperature of the green coffees in the system, in the drum. Bean probes are always specifically located so that the green coffee covers and moves around the probe during the roast. And as we quickly discussed, measuring true value of anything is impossible. And when it comes to complex systems like coffee roasting, it can get quite tricky. So let's start at the beginning. On this example graph, the starting bean temperature is 165 degrees Celsius. What does this mean? Obviously, the green beans we just dropped into the drum was not 165 degrees. This starting temperature is often called the charge temperature. The charge temperature is set by the roaster to apply the desired amounts of energy right at the beginning of the roast. And as the green beans drop into the drum and starts to make contact with the bean temperature probe, the bean temperature starts to drop very rapidly, as reflected by this steep declining curve. At a certain point, the temperature data sent from the probe will show that the coffee and the roaster is now at an equilibrium, and the temperature will start to increase. This point of change is called the turning point. After this point, although not 100% accurate, the actual temperature of the coffee can be better inferred with the bean temperature probe. Please note that just like cooking a steak, the inside and the outside will change in temperature and physically and chemically as well at very different rates. Let's break down our roast profiles into three main sections. Although it may be unfair to generalize your roasting into three different sections, as at any given point, the coffee can be going through very different things, depending on the coffee itself, the environment, the roaster, and etc. But doing this can be a very powerful tool for us to understand and make very purposeful decisions in roasting coffee. And later in this video, we will very briefly go over some of the significances of these phases and what we may be able to expect in final cup by adjusting little things during these phases. So first, we have the drying phase. After a certain time, the green coffee will start to change its color. The green color will gradually change into more of a yellowish color, and often the roasters mark this as color change. The next phase is called the yellowing phase, or the mired phase. The color of the coffee after the color change will start turning more and more brown into color of the roasted coffee that we're more familiar with. Then we hit first crack. Simply put, first crack is marked by audible mechanical cracks reminiscent of popcorn popping. First crack happens because coffee beans have expanded and its moisture has begun to evaporate. This causes further pressure and forces the beans to crack open. The time after first crack is often called the development phase. Technically, yes, we are always developing the coffee as we roast. But as some of the terms and values we'll be discussing later on, it's called the development time and development time ratio, all happening after the first crack. This phase is often called the development phase. When the roast is done, we mark the end time and the end temperature amongst other data. And now, you not only have roasted coffee, but you have a profile with relevant information to replicate and to improve your final product. Some roasters do not use any data, and it takes great experience and insight into coffee to be able to navigate your roast with only sight, smell, and sound. And some roasters go all out and they record as much data as possible. But Stronghold's Roaster allows you to monitor and revisit a variety of log data from each of your roasts, allowing you to learn more about impact of your decisions and environment in your final cup. And most importantly, allowing you to make corrections to continuously improve your product.